What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. This is Leo's Nerd Talk, and today we're going to be ranking all 52 new release movies I saw in 2023 from my least favorite to my most favorite. So let's get into that. Now, before we get started, let's just all remember that this is my list. These are the movies that I enjoyed the most or didn't enjoy as much. There's a lot of movies this year that I did not get to see, unfortunately, that I was extremely excited for, but schedules, work, life didn't allow me to actually make it to the movie and watch it. So there's going to be a lot of movies on here that I missed that I'm sure a lot of you absolutely love this year. So don't be upset if I don't have it on this list. And also don't be upset if one of your favorite movies is a little bit lower on this list, because of course everybody is entitled to their own opinion. And if you guys like a movie that is a little bit lower, let me know why you guys enjoyed it, or if there's a movie that's not on this list that I should definitely check out, definitely let me know. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into number 52. And at number 52 is going to be Insidious Red Door. The concept of this movie could have been pretty interesting, but it just turned out to be another generic Insidious movie. Not too much to be talked about here. It kind of fell short for me in a lot of different aspects. It was enjoyable enough as a theater experience. It wasn't really that scary, but there's a lot of opportunities that they missed out on this movie that I thought they could made a pretty good Insidious movie, but it kind of just fell short in my book, and it's coming at my number 52 at the bottom of my list. And at number 51, it's going to be Meg 2. So Meg 2 is pretty enjoyable, just like Insidious Red Door. And the biggest fault, I believe, to this movie is that it tried to have two different markets. And with the American market, I felt like it didn't give enough of what we were expected to see, just like the original Meg, where there was a lot of Jason Statham action with the sharks. This felt a lot less action-y. There's not as much Jason Statham fighting the sharks. All that hype and that you saw in the trailer was the last 15 minutes of the movie. So there's just a lot of different aspects of it that felt short on my end. But it was a movie that you can definitely throw in, just have fun with it. It's cheap shark movie fun that's enjoyable enough. But it comes in at my 51. And coming in at my number 50, it's going to be Zoe 102. Kind of a cheap attempt to kind of get some of the people that watched the original show and have that nostalgia, bring back the audience to watch Zoe 102. The concept of the movie was good enough. There was enough plot points here to keep you entertained throughout the whole film, but it's definitely something that you're not ever going to want to throw on ever again. If you're really in the mood to feel that nostalgia for Zoe 101, you're just going to watch Zoe 101. So it comes in at my number 50. And coming in at my number 49 is Good Burger 2. Copy and paste my notes from Zoe 102. This is basically another attempt from Paramount Plus to bring back some nostalgia with Good Burger, the original movie. And a lot of these things were just plot points that were the same exact thing. They just rehashed a lot of the same plots as the original movie. And like I said with Zoe 102, if you're really in the mood to feel that nostalgia for Good Burger, you're never going to throw in Good Burger 2. You're just going to want to watch the original Good Burger, because that one is a lot more funnier. It has a lot more quotable lines. And overall, it's just a better movie. So Good Burger 2 comes in at my 49. And coming in at my 48, it is Silent Night. This movie had huge potential to be a really awesome kick-ass action Christmas movie, but the action was lackluster, no dialogue, characters just felt like cartoons in this movie, and there was some unique aspects to it. You know, you have some of the choreographers that do the John Wick movie, so you would hope for some John Wick action, kick-ass, but it just fell short in a lot of different aspects. The story point is something we've seen before. It's not too crazy. The only thing that makes this stand out is that our main character gets shot in the neck at the beginning of the movie and is unable to speak, which is a cool plot point, but they make not only him not speak, but the entire cast basically doesn't speak. So there's maybe 2 or 3 lines of dialogue in this entire movie, and it felt like an immense runtime. So this fell short in a lot of different aspects. This is definitely one of those movies that I'll probably never watch ever again, because it's just not entertaining enough to keep you in your seat. So Silent Night was unfortunately a big miss for me. And it comes in at my 48. And coming in at my 47, it is Hunger Games: The Ballad of Songbird and Snake. There was a lot of unique aspects to this movie. If you've seen my review, you understand why I don't like this movie that much. I won't really get into that, but there was a lot of cool aspects in the beginning of the film. The first two acts were pretty interesting. You know, once you get into the actual arena and you start having the Hunger Games take place, there was some pretty unique, cool action there. But once you get into the third act, it just felt like a completely different movie. It felt so far out there that should have just been a movie all on its own. And it really lost the pacing there. When you think the movie's almost about to be over, there's still another 45 minutes to go. And it just really hit the brakes on the pacing. It really fell short on the storytelling. And it just didn't have that smooth transition into from the first two acts into the last third act, leaving it with a very dull ending. And coming to my 46, it is Sloth House. I really enjoyed this movie just for the simple fact of a killer sloth. I thought that was pretty hilarious. And this kept me in my seat the entire time. I was laughing, I was enjoying myself. But when you take a step back, it is a terrible movie. Terrible acting, terrible dialogue. Characters felt just disingenuous, very fake. You know, obviously having the sloth as a killer is just so out there and cartoonish, where this movie is just something you throw on like something like Scary Movie, where it's just dumb, stupid fun. But this doesn't do it as good as those type of movies. But I enjoyed enough just because sloths are one of my favorite animals. And that's really the only reason why I went to go watch this movie in the first place, just because I saw the word sloth in the title. And as a killer sloth, that put me in the seat. But other than that, this is not at all a good movie. And coming at my 45, what a disappointment with Ferrari. I was extremely excited for this movie. It was one of my most anticipated movies of the end of the year, and it just didn't have that charisma, that pizzazz that I thought it was going to have. It focused a lot more on Enzo as a person rather than Ferrari as a brand and a racing company. But even with the Enzo storyline, while there was really great acting, really great dialogue, there was very little to kind of keep me in my seat and keep me focused. There was a lot of portions where it felt very slow paced. It was pretty boring, and there was multiple times throughout the movie where I was damn near almost falling asleep. And that's unfortunate because I was very excited for this movie. This could have been another amazing racing movie. And when you get to the racing aspect of the movie, it's not as intense like something like Ford versus Ferrari or Gran Turismo or Rush. So it felt very empty and lackluster at the base of the actual movie itself. And unfortunately, it was just one of the biggest disappointments for me personally of the year. And Ferrari comes in at my 45. And coming in at my 44, not that this is really a shocker to much people, but The Creator. The first trailer never sold me. I watched trailer again, still didn't sell me. Watched trailer maybe 10 times, didn't sell me. And I just walked in because I walked into this movie knowing that it was gonna be a original epic, and it did its job. It has a lot of familiarities from different movies, from different video games, from TV shows, just as familiarities written all over this movie. And I personally didn't really enjoy it that much. And I know a lot of people might say that's blasphemy, because I know a lot of people did enjoy this movie, but I just felt like the plot point was a little weird. Denzel's son didn't have the best acting. He was a very quiet, mute person that didn't really show too much emotions throughout the entire film. I thought the ending was kind of weird. It just didn't, I felt like it didn't end that well. It was a very kind of bleh kind of ending. So there was a lot of things here that was cool and interesting to see, but it was just very familiar to other movies that you would rather watch those instead because they're just better made movies. And it's very unfortunate because a new IP like this would have been great to kind of start this whole new revolution of bringing new IPs instead of always trying to reboot something, try to make a remake from other different IPs. So having a new original story Would have been amazing if it did an amazing job in the box office, if the storytelling was well. But unfortunately for me, it just fell flat on his face the entire time. So the creator comes in at my number 44. And coming at my 43, my God, this was probably even a bigger disappointment than Ferrari. Napoleon. I was so excited for Napoleon. Joaquin Phoenix is an amazing actor. You have Ridley Scott as a director. And it was telling a story that just seemed super intriguing from the original trailer when I saw it. But when you actually step into the movie, while there is big, epic scenes that are super entertaining, while Joaquin Phoenix does an amazing job portraying Napoleon, and there's incredible acting across the board, just the overall pacing of the movie and not having a proper through line, such choppy storytelling, makes it for a frustrating film. To the point when you get to the end, you're just like, really? That's how you're just gonna finish it off? Like, it tried to cover too many years of Napoleon's life in this very short span, where it couldn't focus on major events. It had to just keep chopping from year to year to year. And I think if they would have focused on a more critical plot point of his life, it could have made for a better movie. But the route that they chose didn't really satisfy me, and that choppy storytelling was just unfortunate to watch. So it was one of the biggest disappointments of the year for me. And coming at my 42 is The Nun 2. Very cut paste like the original Nun. Not too much different here in the story. It's just another nun haunting a church, and that's kind of what you get. And it's fun enough. You know, these movies are there for you to go in, try to have a couple of good scares, and leave. They're just cheap popcorn fun that you always go in and watch because you know what you're walking into. So I had a good enough time with it. It's a fine movie. Nothing really to write home about. It's The Nun 2. What can I say? And coming to my number 41 is A Haunting in Venice. I had some high hopes, but also was very skeptical about this movie just because I do enjoy the two prior films to this one with The Murder on the Orient Express and The Death on the Nile. And having a movie with a horror twist seemed pretty interesting, and I was really wondering how they're going to do it. I actually like the way they did the horror implement. It wasn't like it was actually ghosts there. There was things happening with these people in this house that made these visions happen. And I really enjoyed the way they went through that route and not go for the cheap route and just throwing ghosts into their universe or demons or whatever the case may be. So I enjoyed the route that they went with this movie. But it's probably the weaker of the three films. So while I really enjoyed it and I'm excited to see what they do in the future with these characters, or specifically with this detective, it was just a fine horror movie of the year. Again, similar to The Nun 2, nothing to write home about. You understand what you're going into with these movies and you have fun with it, and that's about it. And coming in my number 40 is The Marvels. Now, to be perfectly clear, I generally kind of enjoyed this movie. There was a lot of faults to this one. It was not a perfect movie at all. That's why it's, of course, at my number 40. But as a movie in general, to just go in and have fun for a superhero movie, it did a pretty good job of entertaining me, giving me some laughs. It had some pretty cool action sequences. But there were so many parts that they wanted to throw so many jokes into the middle of serious plot points that kind of just threw the story off the rails. And if they would have kind of backed off a little bit on those big jokes that they were trying to implement that lasted 10-15 minutes at a time for a single bit, it makes for, again, a choppy storytelling, and it kind of desensitizes the seriousness of the situation where you don't really feel threatened by the main villain here. So it falls short in a lot of different aspects, but it's a movie that you can definitely throw on and have a lot of fun with. The actors here do a pretty good job, especially Miss Marvel. Her character is super charismatic. I really, really enjoyed her on screen. And it's definitely one of those movies that make you want to go back and watch the Miss Marvel TV show. So I definitely really enjoyed The Marvels, and it's going to come in at my number 40. And coming in at my 39, it is Leo, the Adam Sandler animated film on Netflix. I just really enjoyed this movie. Of course, one, it's my name, Leo. And I just enjoy anything that Adam Sandler has to do with. I think he's an amazing actor, a way better actor than people give him credit for, and I think he's shown that in different movies throughout his career. But everybody always knows him for his comedies, and they think he's kind of a one-trick pony. And unfortunately, I feel like a lot of his career kind of went down because of that, because people didn't take him seriously as an actor. But in this, of course, this is not him acting. This is him being a voice actor in an animated film. And I thought the animated film was really cute. It had really cute moments, really funny moments. It was very, very enjoyable. Definitely a movie you can just throw on for the family and have a good time with it. But again, it's just another one of those Netflix movies that you throw on just to have fun. And it's not necessarily a cinematic masterpiece. Of course not. So I really enjoy Leo, but it comes in at my number 39. And coming in at my 38, it's going to be Totally Killer. This is a pretty good concept where you have a kind of Back to the Future plot point mixed in with a slasher, and it jumbles them all together and it gives you Totally Killer. And this movie was fine. I mean, it had a lot of fun moments in it. It tried to throw a lot of social commentary out there. It was very like throwing it in your face with a social commentary, but it was a good way of doing it, where you're poking fun of the new generation as well as the older generation of what we do bad now and back then. And it just pokes fun on both sides, but it makes it a very enjoyable way to watch that kind of commentary being thrown out there. And the movie itself was actually pretty fun to watch, where you still had some predictability on the killer. The plot points were, again, predictable and very easy to kind of catch on to. But having that mix of like that Back to the Future vibe with a slasher made it for a pretty enjoyable experience. And so Totally Killer comes in at my 38. And coming in at my 37 is going to be Elemental. I didn't expect anything from this movie, to be honest. I thought this was just going to be another flop. And it was actually one of the most enjoyable animated movies of the year. It had a lot of heart to it. It had some amazing animations. I really love the characters here. It was a very sweet, heartfelt movie. And it's definitely one of those movies you can throw on at any time. One of the better Pixar movies that have come out in the most recent years, for sure. So I really enjoyed Elemental. Not really much to talk about with this on this movie. Definitely check it out if you haven't seen it, and it comes in at my number 37. And coming in at number 36, a movie that I'm pretty sure most of you never watched. It is Paint. I did a review on this movie on my channel back in the earlier days, like 4 months ago. But it was a movie that was very enjoyable. I really enjoy biopics like this. This is a movie about Bob Ross, essentially. It's not exactly a Bob Ross story. It's more inspired by Bob Ross as a person. And so it's kind of a biopic, kind of a fictional movie of Bob Ross, but nonetheless, it's a really enjoyable movie. I thought that Owen Wilson did a really good job playing this Bob Ross type character, and there was a lot of good moments in this movie, a lot of good acting. Seeing him go through his kind of story arc of he's that number one painter in the world and everybody admires him, and having someone come in and kind of best him, and he becomes kind of the person in the backlight, and he has to kind of step back and reevaluate his life, is a very interesting story. And I really enjoyed it. Paint was one of those biopics that I thoroughly enjoy. I'm a big biopic person. That's kind of one of my favorite genres in film ever. So something like this definitely piqued my interest, and I really, really enjoyed it. And this is definitely something I can see myself watching multiple times. So Paint comes in at my number 30. And coming in at my 35, I feel honestly terrible putting this here this low, because this is a fantastic movie. But Killers of the Flower Moon. Now, before anybody starts bashing me down in the comments, the reason why this movie is so low on the list is mainly for two reasons. It's a movie that is very taxing of a watch. There is a lot going on here. It's not one of those movies like a lot of the movies below this where you can just throw in and have fun with it. This is not a movie to have fun with. It's one of those movies that you really need to sit down and watch it, and you feel what's going on with these people, with the Osage tribe, and what's going on with all these people trying to take over their land and their oil money and all that stuff. So it's a very taxing experience, and that's why it's so low, because the rewatchability is not really there. And on top of the rewatchability, even if you wanted to sit down and actually watch this movie, it's a 3.5 hour long movie. So even though it's a taxing experience, it's a long taxing experience. And you can't always just spare 3.5 hours to watch a movie like this that is so mentally taxing. But besides that, the plot points, the story, the acting, the directing is top tier on this movie. Really, really is. So it's not low on this list because it's bad. It's more low on this list because of how difficult it is to kind of throw in this movie and watch it and enjoy it. Because again, it's one of those movies you watch once and you probably never watch it again, but you still really appreciate it. And coming in my number 34, quite the opposite of what I just said about Killers of the Flower Moon, you have The Machine. And The Machine is basically a story about Bert Kreischer, the comedian, and his story about when he went to Russia and joined the Russian mob. And if you guys don't know who Bert Kreischer is, he's a pretty famous comedian. He's one of my favorite comedians of all time. And when I saw this movie coming out, I had to go watch it. And this is one of those movies you can just throw in, have fun, because it's a stupid movie. It's a stupid movie. People get drunk. There's stupid action. You know, it's just a comedy action movie at its core, and it's amazing for it. It does its job well. It definitely made me laugh extremely hard in the theater, and I really enjoyed this movie throughout the entire time. But by no means is this a good movie. You know, there's not the best acting. You have Mark Hamill in here, which is probably one of the better actors within the movie itself. But even then, everybody else that's involved in the film is kind of just there to have fun. And this is all this really was. The movie didn't make money at all. It lost a lot of money, actually. And that's fine. I'm pretty sure Bert Kreischer didn't care to make money on this movie. He just wanted to make a fun, awesome comedy action movie so people that really enjoy Bert Kreischer as a comedian can enjoy that on the side. And that's really all this is. So The Machine comes in at my number 34. And coming in my 33 is The Last Voyage of the Demeter. This is the Dracula story, but all it really is one chapter of the Dracula book of how they got to, I believe it was, I forget from where they started to London, and how Dracula got to London being transported on this boat called the Demeter. And every night there's some sinister stuff going on, and the people on the boat start realizing that there's an evil on the boat, and it turns out to be, of course, Dracula, and he's picking them off one by one. When I saw the trailer, this definitely really intrigued me. It did seem like it was going to be a little bit cheap in terms of production value, just because some of the CGI was very noticeable at times. They did a very good job of having Dracula kind of always being lingering in the dark, so you couldn't always tell. But when you had those like lightning flashes and you'll see Dracula, you can definitely tell it was heavy CGI. But the actual monster of Dracula itself, this is more of a monster form, he's not in his human form, was really, really unique, and I really enjoyed the take that they had on this. And of course, this is just stripped out right out of the Dracula book, and I thought it did a pretty good job setting up a second movie from what it seems like it's going to. I don't remember if this movie did well in the box office, but if it did, I hope it did, because I would really like to see how they follow up The Last Voyage of the Demeter. And this comes in at my number 33. And coming in at my number 32 is going to be Saw X. And this was probably one of the bigger surprises of the year. I was not expecting for a Saw movie that was going back in time to kind of focus more on Tobin Bell's character. And Tobin Bell, he's the actor of John Kramer, my apologies, of John Kramer. And focusing on him was the thing, the formula they needed to do since the beginning. I don't know why they ever did not do that, and why they killed his character off so early within the franchise. Probably one of the biggest mistakes of their life. They probably did that, and the next movie came out and saw how poorly it did, and they're like, yep, we made a mistake. So these movies are fun. They used to do these once a year, every Halloween, and they took kind of a break. And when this came out, this was probably one of the best Saw movies to come out ever. It's probably my favorite Saw movie, right alongside with Spiral, because I really enjoy Spiral as well. But again, even though the story was a lot more full, focusing on John Kramer as a character, it's still another generic Saw movie, right? It's gonna go through the same tropes that you're always going to see. So if you like the Saw franchise, you're really gonna like this one. And if you don't really like the Saw franchise, this one might surprise you. So Saw X comes in at my number 32. And coming in at my number 31 is going to be The Flash. And this movie was the most hated on movie of the year, it feels like. People were just bashing on this movie all year long. It did take me a while to actually go see it. I wanted to see it opening week, but again, schedule, work, I never was able to plan that out properly. But I was able to finally watch it here at home when they released it on streaming. And yes, the movie has terrible CGI. Absolutely terrible CGI. That's fine. But I did really enjoy what the plot was trying to do here, of having this kind of broken person that wants to go back and have more time with his mom and just have more time with his family, and using his flash powers to take back in time, and then start getting into this jumble mess of all these universes connecting, jumping to different universes. And you guys know what the movie is. It's the multiverse type of movie. But the core plot was actually really, really intriguing. But what set it back for me, and this could have been a lot higher, to be honest. Even with all the terrible CGI, this could have been a lot higher on the list. But what set it off for me, that just made me put this a lot lower, was the ending of the film made it seem like the entire movie was for nothing. He just went through all of that for nothing, because the final scene of the movie basically shows you that he still hasn't corrected all of the things he's done to change the past and the future. So he still has more to do. So regardless, if you haven't seen the movie, you'll see what I mean if you watch it. But this movie is pointless, but it is a good superhero movie if you can close your eyes and not focus too much on the CGI. And coming in at my number 30, it is Strays. This, from the first trailer, I didn't really want to watch it, but my girl really wanted to watch it. It looked like a pretty fun, cute dog movie that was extremely raunchy, and that's what you get. You get some pretty decent, good comedy. A lot of dog related jokes that they reuse throughout the entire film, and eventually these jokes start to get tiring. The first time you hear it, they're funny, but when you reuse those same jokes over and over again, that funniness kind of starts to lose its sparkle. So it was definitely funny at times. I really enjoyed all the voice actors here on Strays. I like dog movies in general, so I enjoyed it enough. It's definitely one of those movies you can watch at any time of the year and just have fun with it. But plot-wise, we've seen the plot before. Joke-wise, we've heard the jokes before. It just wasn't anything special. So Strays comes in at my number 30. Don't mind the wardrobe change too much. This is my second day filming. I didn't have time to finish yesterday, and I also just got back from Sean Chandler's meet and greet and live video recording. If you don't know who Sean Chandler is, he is a reviewer here on YouTube. He's one of my favorite reviewers on YouTube. So if you guys never seen his stuff before, definitely check it out. He's kind of one of the people that inspired me to start my channel. And I just got back from meeting him in person, which was pretty awesome. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get into my number 29, and that is Barbie. Now, Barbie is pretty interesting, right? Because this is one of those movies that was an event. It was one of the movie events. It was just as big as something like Endgame, for instance, right? Where everybody wanted to talk about this movie. And it wasn't just because of the Barbie movie alone. Of course, being partnered with Oppenheimer and having that Barbenheimer phenomenon, it just made this movie explode more than anybody could have ever predicted. And besides having the Barbenheimer phenomenon and all that kind of that hype that you get with that type of weekend when these two movies came out the same day, I was actually just genuinely excited for the movie itself. Just a Barbie movie sounded interesting to me. Something with live action. I love Margot Robbie as an actress. You also have someone like Ryan Gosling here that's an amazing actor as well. So it just seemed like it would have been something extremely interesting. And when you go watch it, it's not at all what you expect. It has so much more social commentary. And while some of it is a little preachy in the way they do it, Some of the moments felt a little too much, and what they're trying to accomplish and what the message was here of the entire movie. But besides those little kind of negatives I have about the movie, it was actually really enjoyable and something I can definitely see myself rewatching multiple times throughout the year. So Barbie comes in at my number 29. And at my number 28 is going to be Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Unfortunately, or fortunately, actually, this is the last movie of the DCEU. We're going to get a reboot here in 2 years from now, in 2025, with Superman. So this movie was unfortunately set up for failure. A lot of the DC movies this year were set up for failure because we heard about a year prior that the DCEU is no longer going to be continuing, and all these movies have no reason to be here. There's no plot points that they're trying to set up. That this is the end. These movies mean nothing. And well, this movie didn't close off the DCEU in any way. It was still a really enjoyable movie. The action was great. Seeing Jason Momoa as Aquaman again was amazing. I really enjoyed the original Aquaman. It's one of my favorite DCEU movies out of these past 10 years that we've been having the DCEU. So walking into this movie, I was actually generally pretty excited for it because I really love the original Aquaman movie. And it was good enough. Like I said, it didn't set up anything. It didn't close off the DCEU. It was just one of those movies that was pretty standalone. You can throw on and not have to worry too much about all these different multiverse, world-ending plot points and stuff like that. So that's kind of the enjoyable aspect of this movie, where you don't have to worry too much about all the external factors. You just enjoy Jason Momoa as Aquaman, and that's what you get. It was a fun plot point, and even someone as controversial as Amber Heard, she did an amazing job in this movie, I think. I think leaving her parts in it, I know there's rumors about cutting all of Amber Heard's parts out of this movie completely. I think leaving her parts in it was the smart choice because I think she did an amazing job, just what you expect from her character. She doesn't have too much to do in the movie, but when she's on screen, she's enjoyable enough. So overall, I really enjoyed this. I think it was a good closeout movie without being a closing movie for the DCEU, and it comes in at my 28. And coming in at my number 27 is going to be Scream 6. I was actually generally pretty dang excited for this Scream sequel. I'm one that likes the first original Scream, and that's my favorite one. That's kind of definitive for me, and I'm pretty sure it's pretty definitive for a lot of people here that love the Scream franchise. And the Scream movies have always been pretty consistent. There's not really a bad one out of the bunch, which is really good for a horror franchise that's this long to not have really a bad movie. And you can say the same thing about Scream 6. Everything until maybe the last 20 minutes of the movie was pretty dang great. And the reason why it falls off so short towards the end is just the reveal of who the killer is, the motivations, and just a lot of things of that nature, where it doesn't really end off satisfying like the previous Scream installments that we've had in the past. And also now with the whole controversy of the actresses not going back for Scream 7, it just makes this kind of portion of the Scream franchise where we have these two leads kind of seem pointless now, because now it's like it's set up more plot points, but then they're just cutting it off. It ends now, and who knows what the writers and producers are going to do with the Scream 7, if that's even going to be a thing anymore at all. So regardless of the fact of that whole drama happening with the Scream 7, this was still an enjoyable Scream movie. There was a lot of good kills, a lot of interesting things they did with the killer itself. So I really enjoyed this movie, but it's definitely not my favorite horror movie of the year, but it's one of the better Scream sequels. So Scream 6 comes in at my number 27. And coming in at number 26 is going to be Creed 3. This was Michael B. Jordan's directorial debut, and I thought it was fine as a Creed movie. There was a lot of interesting things here. There's a lot more of a personal battle with Michael B. Jordan and Jonathan Majors' character, and I like that element of it where it's a lot more emotionally drawing in terms of who he's fighting. What I didn't really like was some of the ways that Michael B. Jordan kind of did some of the fight sequences where he's blatantly made it known that he took a lot of inspiration from anime. And I really love anime, and I don't think he captured that feeling, in my opinion. I didn't really see the anime-esque vibe that he was trying to go for. Maybe it's what he's watched in the past that he was trying to replicate that I have never seen before, but just that ending fight felt kind of dull and empty to me. Where the previous two Creed entries that we've had and have been a lot more visceral and violent, where this one just seemed again a little dull, and I just didn't really enjoy the way that fight ended. I wish it was a lot more intense and emotionally satisfying for those two characters towards the end. So it's definitely one of the lesser of the Creed movies and one of the lesser of the whole Rocky franchise in general. So it was unfortunately not as good as I hoped it was going to be. So Creed 3 comes in at my number 26. And coming in at my number 25 is going to be Thanksgiving. This was honestly a pretty big surprise for me. When I saw the original trailer for Thanksgiving, I was pretty excited for it because, a Thanksgiving horror movie, that sounds pretty interesting to me. It had a pretty unique killer design. And this worked for me in a lot of different aspects. The killer was creepy. The characters were actually entertaining, and you cared about some of the characters here. There were some annoying ones here and there, but that's fine. You expect that in horror movies like this. It draws a lot of different similarities to to Halloween, to Scream, where you have the whodunit mystery of the killer aspect, as well as you have kind of that creepiness and stalking factor of like Michael Myers, and you see a lot of those similarities throughout the film that actually work very, very well. And I thought a lot of the kills were actually pretty brutal. Some pretty cool Thanksgiving themed kills, which is also good to see. You never want to put a horror movie into a holiday and not give it that holiday vibe. That's one thing that a lot of horror or action movies that are based in holidays kind of miss sometimes, where they just give it a holiday name and expect it to be a holiday classic without giving it that holiday vibe. And I thought this did a pretty good job of implementing that Thanksgiving vibe into the kills and just the overall movie in general. And apart from some CGI with the kills and the blood being pretty obvious at certain points, I thought the reveal of the killer was pretty fun. It was pretty obvious at certain points, and also it did a pretty good job at leading you to different people. So I overall enjoyed Thanksgiving, and it's definitely going to be one of those movies that I'm going to see over and over again every year during the Thanksgiving season. So Thanksgiving comes in at my number 25. And coming in at my number 24, a movie that I kind of forgot came out in 2023, Megan. It was one of the first horror movies to come out of the year. It's one of those January dump movies that most people, or I should say traditionally, are where the bad horror movies are dumped into in the month of January. But this one was actually a pretty big surprise. And this was kind of a punch towards the Child's Play franchise, where they're trying to do their own killer doll movie, but it worked in a lot of different aspects. I enjoyed the relationship between the young girl and the Megan doll itself. While the young girl could be a little frustrating and annoying to see on screen because she doesn't listen to her bigger sister, I still enjoy that dynamic that they had. I thought the kills were really good. This movie was kind of known for that kind of creepy dance that Megan was doing, and that's what gave the buzz on this movie, and a lot of people went to go see it for it. And I'm happy because this movie was actually genuinely pretty good. A lot of good brutal kills, and overall I just enjoyed the movie. I would be interested to see a Megan sequel. I'm not sure if that's ever going to happen, but it would be fun to see where this doll can go, or if they make other dolls in the same universe that have the same vibe. That would be kind of interesting as well. But Megan comes in at my number 24. And coming at my number 23, this is a hot take and a half, if I have ever said one. John Wick 4. Oh man, this movie was frustrating. I enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong. Movies from 25 and above, I don't think there's really a bad one in there. But John Wick 4 was just kind of frustrating because it was meant to be this huge, epic movie that was going to come out for the John Wick universe and hopefully wrap up what's been going on in the past 3 films. And it just felt a little lackluster. The action sequences felt too choreographed. The action just felt too long. The amount of damage that John Wick was willing to take, or should I say handle, was felt like a little too much, a little too out there. It just didn't feel like the previous movies. And I think for me personally, the first one was really great. The second one is my favorite John Wick movie of all time. The third one was really good, but it kind of started having that little downslope. It wasn't the best. And this one, I think, is my least favorite of the four. And it sucks because I'm a huge John Wick fan. And I really love the way they ended the movie. I think the ending was phenomenal, and I think that's a perfect way to end it. If you wanted to end this franchise like completely, I think that's the perfect way to end it. But a lot of the movie, the majority of the movie just felt really lackluster. It didn't feel as visceral and brutal like the previous movies have. And unfortunately, that just sucks for me, right? Because I was extremely excited for John Wick 4. So this is one of the other bigger disappointments of the year. And coming in at my number 22 is Five Nights at Freddy's. I was excited for this one. I'm not a huge kind of diehard Five Nights at Freddy's fan like I know a lot of people that went to go see this movie are. But I've played, I believe, up to the third Five Nights at Freddy's game when it first came out. Back then, when these games were brand new, I was really into it. I was always doing research and about the games and the lore and all that kind of stuff. But I kind of fell off after the third game. And they seem to kind of be a rinse and repeat from there on. And I never thought that a movie like this would actually ever come out. I never thought that the fan base of Five Nights at Freddy's would be this huge, where this movie did so good just on the video game fandom alone. Everybody that loved the video game loved this movie. And I thought it was an amazing movie. I think it did a good job depicting what the video games are. I wish there was a little bit more kind of rated R flavor to it. I know it wouldn't have probably have done as well if it was rated R. I know the PG-13 aspect of it definitely brought more more people into seats at the theaters. But if it was like a rated R version of this movie, I thought, for me personally, it would have been a lot better. But besides the fact of that, I really enjoyed the way they implemented the actual animatronics into the story. I thought the story in general was actually pretty heartfelt with, you having this brother and his young sister, and also this kind of cop security guard that's all kind of intertwined to the Five Nights at Freddy's lore within this movie. So I thought it did a really good job of exploring the lore and giving a fan service to all the Five Nights at Freddy's video game fans. So I thought this did an amazing job on depicting Five Nights at Freddy's, and it comes in at my number 22. And coming in at my number 21 is Fast X. This was actually a pretty big surprise. Of course, a lot of people have fallen off the Fast and the Furious franchise, probably back when 6 came out, maybe even as late as 7. Some people were still accepting of 7. But this has been one of the better Fast and Furious movies in a very long time. I love Jason Momoa as the main villain here. I thought he was so charismatic, so charming, hilarious, and actually pretty threatening to the family. He actually was a threat, and it felt like for a very long time there was nothing that can take down Dom and his family. But Jason Momoa's character actually was a threat, and I love that. And just again, the charismatic Jason Momoa as this character, what he brought to this character was just amazing. It was such a blast to see him on screen. The downfall of this movie is having that 1-2 part that a lot of movies have been doing this past year. It ended in such a terrible way, where the credits start rolling and you're like, you gotta be shitting me, man. Are you serious? That's how you're gonna end the movie? And it's frustrating because it's a half of a movie. It's a 2.5 hour long movie, whatever it is, but it's only half of a movie. And now we have to wait for part 2, and there might even be a part 3 to this to finish off the Fast saga. So that was the frustrating part from it. But besides that, Fast X is probably in my top 5 favorite Fast and Furious movies. So there's that. So take that as you will. If you haven't seen the movie, I definitely recommend it. especially if you're a Fast and Furious fan. And coming at number 20 is going to be Wonka. I was really excited for this. I'm a fan of the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I know a lot of people think these movies are kind of creepy in a sense, and I can see where people are kind of feeling on that. But both these movies I've watched so many times when I was a kid, and seeing this as kind of a prequel, kind of a standalone movie, kind of an origin movie, I just thought it was extremely charming. I thought it did an amazing job. Maybe a little bit too many musical numbers for my taste, but the music numbers were entertaining. They weren't annoying by any sense. So I really enjoyed what Wonka brought to this Willy Wonka universe. I enjoyed the story of it with this whole chocolate cartel. I thought that was actually pretty interesting and funny. And just the world building that they did here. I really enjoyed this movie. So Wonka is one of those movies that I feel like not a lot of people went to go see, but it was one of the more charming and fun movies to see of the year. So Wonka comes in at my number 20. And coming in at my number 19 is the Super Mario Bros. I was extremely excited for this, of course, like many people were. It's one of the highest grossing movies of the year. It would have been the highest grossing movie of the year if it wasn't for Barbie, but this is a lot more rewatchable than Barbie. So obviously two different types of movies, but I think this did an amazing job of just depicting what Mario is, right? It just threw in a lot of different generations of Mario. Whether you like the Super Mario Bros. Side-scrolling games, Mario Kart, Luigi's Haunted Mansion, whatever Mario game is your favorite, you had a little bit of that in this movie. And I really enjoyed that. The story, kind of generic, just another Super Mario story, really nothing too much to write home about, but it was just a fun movie. Of course, with Bowser and Jack Black having one of the biggest songs of the year as well with Peaches, just the whole movie itself was just a fun time. And that's what, a lot of times we need throughout the year, where you have big hitters like Oppenheimer, where it's very thought-provoking and very intense watch, similar to like Killers of the Flower Moon, where they're beautifully shot, but the story they're trying to tell is so intense. You need something like Super Mario Bros., where it's just a movie you can throw on and enjoy, and it's just extremely fun. Just a fun, cute, funny, awesome movie that brings back memories of Super Mario, or just whatever the case may be. So, Super Mario Bros. Comes in at my number 19. And coming at my number 18 is going to be Next Goal Wins. Now, I saw this in an early access screening at AMC. It was a secret screening, so I had no idea what I was walking into when I went to go watch this movie. And when Next Goal Wins appeared on the screen, I was extremely happy that that's what was popping up, because I was looking forward to this movie in general. And this is just a pretty great underdog soccer story sport movie that really pulls at the heartstrings in a lot of different ways. You have this character played by Michael Fassbender that was a highly rated coach that had some faults in his career and gets sentenced to this island and tries to help this team grow. And he has to go through a lot of emotional roller coasters with this team, trying to actually warm up to them and finding a way to connect with all of them to actually teach them soccer. And like I said, it's just one of those great underdog stories that's amazing. And by the time it ends, you just had a smile on your face the entire time. It's funny, it's heartfelt, it just has a great riveting story, some amazing acting overall. So I really enjoyed Next Goal Wins, and it comes in at my number 18. And coming at number 17 is Anyone But You. Probably one of the better rom-coms in the past couple of years. I really enjoyed this one. Glenn Powell and Sydney Sweeney did an amazing job here. You can really feel the connection between the two. I thought this was extremely funny. It was heartfelt, and it was just a really good time. And definitely a great date movie if you want to take out your girl, you want to take out your boy, whatever you like. You can go ahead and take them out to see this movie, and it's just a fun rom-com time. And I really enjoyed this movie from beginning to end. There was never a part where I disliked the movie. I thought I did an amazing job for a generic rom-com story. So Anyone But You comes in at my number 17. And coming at number 16, the other rom-com of the year, No Hard Feelings. I just think this one did better than Anyone But You, because this one fell in more towards the raunchy side of the comedy, and I really enjoyed that. I think, you know, Jennifer Lawrence taking a role like this was actually a great choice on her behalf. You typically don't see A-list celebrities doing roles like this anymore. And I thought it was just a great thing for her to do. I think she did an amazing job. The young guy that was the love interest, in a sense, in the movie did an amazing job. And their connection of having this kind of person that's getting hired to have sex with this young kid to get him out of his shell, and seeing how their relationship kind of grows to them becoming actual friends by the end. It's just a great story overall, with having some pretty fun raunchy comedy. So I really enjoyed this one. It was one of the better, again, just like copy and paste what I said about Anyone But You, one of the better rom-coms of the past few years. So No Hard Feeling comes in at my number 16. And coming at my number 15 is going to be Extraction 2. Now, this is the movie I was hoping John Wick 4 was going to be when I went into John Wick 4. This is just exciting, brutal, visceral. The action sequences in Extraction 2 was just so much more epic in scope that I just enjoyed this a heck of a lot more than John Wick 4. And this is, like I said, this is what I was hoping John Wick 4 was going to be. And the story itself in here is pretty generic for a action movie. You know, the first Extraction was another generic action movie as well, but these two movies together have some of the better action sequences out there. The choreography is amazing. The gunplay is awesome. You know, this had like a 21-minute shot where the camera didn't cut, and that whole sequence was just amazing to watch. Seeing all these cars and helicopters and brutal fighting all happen at the same time. Extraction 2 was probably the best action movie of the year for me. So it comes in at my number 15. And coming in at my number 14 is going to be Renfield. This was a big surprise for me for sure. When I saw the original trailer, it didn't really sell me too much. It just seemed like too much of a goofy take on Dracula, and I didn't really think too much of it when I saw it, the trailer. Then months passed, and I started hearing people say that it was a pretty crazy movie. And I saw that it was on streaming, and just like everybody else, when there's really nothing else to watch, and I keep passing by it day by day, I decided to click it one day. And this was such a brutal, violent movie that I was not expecting at all. You know, Nicolas Cage as Dracula was just amazing. Something that I never thought I needed, but absolutely loved. You have Nicholas Hoult, that was kind of his familiar, that I thought did an amazing job as well. The story focuses more on his character, and I thought he did a great job in his role of being the familiar to Dracula. And just, again, the kind of the story that you have here of him trying to break out of his shell and not be this kind of slave to Dracula anymore and want to be his own person was a pretty amazing story. And just, again, the visceralness of like the fighting, the gore. There was a lot of CGI gore here, but it didn't feel like it was throwing off the movie by any means. You accepted it because of the type of movie it is. It is definitely super campy and goofy, but in a good way. In a way where you can still have all that gore and violence, and it just makes it for an extremely, extremely entertaining Dracula movie. So Renfield comes in at my number 14. And coming at my number 13 is Talk to Me. I was interested in this movie mainly because of the directors behind it. I used to watch Raka Raka, the YouTubers, for many, many years. I've seen their YouTube videos for such a long time, probably since I was like in middle school. That's probably how long they've been around on YouTube. And when I heard that they were gonna do a horror movie, that definitely intrigued me. And I just recently watched this not too long ago, and it's probably one of the better possession movies, if not one of the best possession movies we have gotten in the past 10 years. I really enjoyed the take that they did on this. The twist that you have at the end, I was like, damn, that's crazy. And just the way they implemented the possession, and the way they kind of congeal with their bodies, and the way they look while they're being possessed, it's definitely a creepy factor. And also just kind of the visceralness when one of the characters gets possessed and the demon kind of takes over his body and starts slamming his head on the counter and he's trying to rip his eye out and stuff. It's definitely one of those movies that kind of makes you like, oh, kind of squeal a little bit. But I loved it. I love how violent it was, how unique the possession aspect of it was, where they're trying to make it to this kind of party game. It was so many different unique aspects of it, and it made it one of the better horror movies of the year and one of the best possession movies that we've gotten in a very, very long time. And coming to my number 12, it is Dungeons and Dragons Honor Amongst Thieves. I am a big Dungeons and Dragons fan. I love playing the tabletop Dungeons and Dragons. Baldur's Gate 3, which is a video game based off of Dungeons and Dragons that came out this year, was my game of the year, and it did also win game of the year. So this was my movie. This is the movie for me to watch, for me to love, and I absolutely did. This was extremely fun. You know, it took a lot of different risk when it came to like the rules of Dungeons and Dragons, but it's hard to visualize the rules in Dungeons and Dragons into a movie where you had to kind of cheat on certain aspects, and I didn't mind it at all. I think it did an amazing job showing all the different classes that you can do, their powers. Seeing their powers on screen was amazing. You know, the CGI was done very, very well with the transformations of the druid going into different animals. I thought the story was really nice. You know, it was pretty heartfelt with his father and his daughter and trying to gain the trust of her back, because she's been lied to ever since she was a young girl of what happened to her dad and stuff. So there was a lot of awesome, unique aspects of this movie that I really enjoyed, and I hope they follow this up with a sequel, whether it's with the same characters or new characters. I don't really care. I just want to see more Dungeons and Dragons in live action because it was amazing. But coming at my number 11, it is Air. And as I said a couple of times already, I am a huge biopic fan. And seeing the creation of how the Jordan Nike came to be, it was an amazing story. This doesn't focus too much on Michael Jordan, and I actually really enjoyed that they didn't focus on Michael Jordan himself and focus more on his mom and how she basically made Michael Jordan one of the richest people in the entire world on negotiating this deal with Nike. And her negotiating skills and just her charismatic nature, her character itself was just so nice to see on screen, especially with Matt Damon. They were both amazing actors. The whole cast here did an amazing job. And just seeing the story of how the Air Jordan came to be was just amazing. It's one of those movies that you watch and it just puts you into awe. Something like kind of like the Social Network or The Founder, or even something like Oppenheimer, where you watch this movie and you're like, wow, I can't believe that these events took place, and like this is real life. And that's what I love about biopics, is that a lot of times stories that happen in real life are better than what Hollywood can make up, which is insane that things like this happen. And while this is not a epic action movie, just the scenarios that happened to get the Air Jordan to launch was just amazing to watch. So Air comes in at my number 11. All right, guys, we have finally made it to my top 10 movies of the year. And at my number 10, it is Evil Dead Rise. This is my favorite horror movie of the year. I am a huge fan of the Evil Dead series. I don't know if you can see it from there, but I have all the Evil Deads up here already on Blu-ray, 4K, all that kind of stuff. I love the Evil Dead series. I think it's some of the better horror movies of all time. It's definitely my type of horror movie. I love this kind of more visceral demonic possessions than some of the other things that we've seen before. And Evil Dead Rise did not disappoint at all. It was a great follow-up to the Evil Dead kind of remake that we had a few years back. I thought it was just as violent, just as visceral, and also the creepiness element that this one has is where your own mother is the threat. You know, she is killing off her kids essentially, and just that concept alone is insane and creepy and scary to think about. So I think Evil Dead Rise did an amazing job, and I'm very excited to see what they're going to do, because I know there's these kind of necromancy books that they're trying to cover. This was the second one, and there should be one more, I believe. And I'm excited to see how they follow this up, if they ever do follow up. But like I said, I really love Evil Dead as a series, and Evil Dead Rise did a amazing job in my opinion, and it comes in at my number 10. And coming at my number 9, it is Guy Ritchie, The Covenant. I'm a sucker for Jake Gyllenhaal. He is my favorite actor of all time, Anything that he's in, I'm most likely going to love, and I definitely love this. This had a big epic first act of having these kind of special agents, not special agents, but special forces in the army trying to find where these people are making these IUDs and bombs and stuff like that, and things just go south fast, where his entire team is unfortunately killed off, and you have Jake Gyllenhaal's character is the only one alive with the translator that they have on the team. And then it comes into the story of survival, where Jake Gyllenhaal is brutally hurt, where he's barely conscious, he can't walk, and this translator is dragging him through terrorist territory for miles and days trying to get back to base and survive all these different nights and threats and people trying to find them throughout the nights. And once you get past all of that, and you think the story in the movie is going to end, now we get back introduced to Jake Gyllenhaal's character as he's trying to help get the person that saved his life out of danger, because people are still hunting him, and get him into America to save his life and his family. And it's just such an amazing, riveting story. And this is a true story too. So kind of copy and paste what I said about Air, where stories that happened in real life are more riveting than what we can make up. And that's just insane that something like this that was so tragic happened, but it was just such an amazing story that you can barely believe it's true, but it is. And that's what I love about movies like this. So Guy Ritchie's The Covenant comes in at my number 9. And coming at number 8, it is Blue Beetle. Although the DCEU was already announced that it was going to be over, and none of these movies, like I said about, Aquaman, none of these movies really had any merit to exist. Blue Beetle was such a fresh experience. It was just the right amount of everything that you like about a superhero movie, where it still felt reminiscent of a lot of movies like Ant-Man, Iron Man, Spider-Man, whatever the case. There's so much you can do with a superhero movie to the point where it's always going to feel like the same thing. But what really set this movie apart was the family aspect of having them also be a part of his journey, and the family being so hilarious and so put together, where you just feel that love, and also being a kind of Hispanic movie. There's a lot of Hispanic jokes and stuff that for someone like me was very meaningful, and I love seeing this movie and his family dynamic, and I thought it did an amazing job. The story was amazing, and if I'm not mistaken, I think Jolo is still going to be Blue Beetle in the reboot of the DCU, because they've already confirmed that the Blue Beetle is technically the first superhero of the DCU, but it's not going to be the first movie. Obviously, we have Superman coming out. So I really hope the rumors are true that he is going to continue on into the DCU and continue being Blue Beetle, because I think he did an amazing job, and this movie is definitely one of my favorites of the year. So Blue Beetle comes in at my number 8. And coming at my number 7 is going to be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. I really enjoyed the art style that was implemented here. It felt very reminiscent of the Spider-Verse movies that we've gotten in the past couple of years. And I enjoy the new take that they had on the Turtles, where they were a lot more younger. You can tell they were a lot more younger. I do enjoy more of their mature aspect of the Teenage Mutant Turtles, but I did like this just because it felt a lot more grounded. They felt a lot more immature, and that's what made the movie a lot more funny. And kind of seeing them become the heroes that they always wanted to be was a nice, genuine story. And I hope they follow up this with another movie, which I think they are. I think they're going to do a TV show first and then follow up with a second movie. So I'm really excited what they do with that. I really enjoy the art style. I really enjoyed the characters that we get here with the Turtles, the new version of the Turtles that we've gotten. Splinter, I didn't really enjoy too much of what they did with Master Splinter. It was good enough where I felt like he was a loving father and a very overprotective father. So I did enjoy some of the aspects that they had with Splinter. And coming at my number 6, it is Saltburn. This is the last movie that I saw of 2023. I just recently saw it a couple of days ago. I was actually excited to see it when it was first announced and I saw the trailers, but because of scheduling and work and all that kind of stuff, I was never able to see it in theaters. And that sucks because this movie was insane, to say the least. You know, there's a lot of people saying it's the most disturbing movie of the year, yada, yada, yada. Well, there is a lot of disturbing aspects of it. Just the commitment that these characters had to the story was amazing. You know, there are so many different things that happen in this movie that make your jaw drop, and the story itself was so riveting. It reminded me a lot of Parasite, if you saw that movie, where you have someone kind of infiltrating this family and trying to take over and taking out them one by one. And it's such a mind-blowing movie when you're watching it, where you don't suspect at all our main character being capable of all these different things. But when it starts happening, you're just like, Jesus Christ, I can't believe this is happening right now. And where the movie did feel a little long-winded towards the end, I thought it wrapped up in a very nice way. And I just really enjoy Saltburn. If you haven't seen Saltburn, it's definitely a taxing watch, but it's a very enjoyable watch at the same time. So it comes in at my number 6. Now, before I give you my top 5, make sure to join me in the comment section down below. Let me know what your favorite movies of the year were. Give me your entire list. Give me your top 10, your top 5. Give me just your number 1 movie of the year. Whatever it is, I would love to hear what you guys think. And just remember that this is my opinions. These are the movies that I enjoyed. I have a lot of different reasons why I picked the list the way I did it. And if there's a movie on here that you guys did not see and you really think I should watch it, definitely let me know. Make sure to keep all the comments respectful. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get into my number 5. And coming at my number 5, it is going to be Champions. Now, I'm sure none of you really know what this is. This is a Prime movie that came out not too long ago. And it's basically a story about Woody Harrelson, which it was a famous college basketball coach getting into some trouble. And as community service, he has to coach this team of mentally disabled kids. And it just becomes this emotional roller coaster of a movie that is so, so beautiful. If you know what reasons I did not like the previous Hunger Game movie that came out this year, it's the opposite for this movie, where you have these kids that are so capable, and I just love seeing it. You know, if you guys don't know, my brother has Down syndrome, and that's why this movie kind of resonates with me in a higher level than it probably would with some of you guys. And just seeing how capable these young adults are, it's just so emotionally satisfying for me. This movie probably made me cry 5 times throughout the entire runtime. I absolutely love this. I think Woody Harrelson did an amazing job with them, just as an actor in general. I think all the actors and actresses that were involved here that had some sort of disability did an amazing job. They were hilarious. It was just such a beautiful story to see on screen, and it was definitely one of my favorite movies in the entire year. One of my favorite movies in general. This is probably going to crack my top 50 movies of all time now. Just how much I love this movie and how much fun and how much emotion was in, how much comedy that I actually really enjoyed. I think the producers, the directors, the actors, actresses just did an amazing job with this movie, and this has no faults in my opinion. So Champions comes in at my number 5. And coming at my number 4, it is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Kind of copy and paste what I said about Fast X, where this is a 1 of 2 part movie. And there's a lot of amazing things in this movie. I love the whole multiverse that they did with this, where I felt very burnt out of multiverse movies. I think this one did it right, where you have this kind of main central point where all the Spider-Mans that are involved in this multiverse kind of hang out, where they help trying to stop any sort of ripples happening within the universe or the Spider-Verse. And I think it just did an amazing job in that aspect. Again, the art style is amazing. Miles Morales as Spider-Man is amazing. And this just told a beautiful story. I felt like the story focused a lot more on Gwen Stacy's character and her relationship with her father more than it did with Miles Morales. And it did it in a way where her story arc is kind of complete by the time we finish this movie, and Miles Morales' story arc is just barely beginning. So it kind of gives you that hard cut in the story, and it's kind of giving you that, well, we'll see what happens next when, Beyond the Spider-Verse comes out, hopefully this year, and it doesn't get delayed any further than it has to be. But overall, I really, really enjoyed this movie. I really loved it. It's definitely one of those movies that is trying to kind of rebrand what an animated movie can be. This pushes the boundaries in the art style, the storytelling, the emotion, and it's just an amazing Spider-Man movie to watch. It's definitely one of the better Spider-Man movies of all time. And Spider-Man Across Spider-Verse comes in at my number 4. And coming in my number 3, it is Gran Turismo. I thought Gran Turismo did a beautiful job in storytelling. Again, this is another biopic. I'm a sucker for biopics, and I just think the acting was amazing. The race sequences was just raw, and you could feel the engine, and I love the race sequences of how intense they were. The storytelling between our main character and his family, of them not being accepting of what he's trying to accomplish and what the kind of career he's trying to follow. The mentorship between this coach and the driver, of them kind of bickering between each other, and him telling them that they're not ready because they're just video gamers, and he proves them wrong. And it's just a lot of emotion, a lot of epic sequences that kind of happen here. I thought it did a beautiful time. Storytelling wise, I think it did an amazing job. Acting wise, there was no faults in my opinion, and I really, really enjoyed Gran Turismo, and it comes in at my number 3. And my runner-up for 2023, probably the biggest surprise of the year, and that is going to be Godzilla -1. I was excited to see this movie. When I saw it on my AMC app, I was like, that looks pretty interesting. A Godzilla movie straight from Japan, I definitely would like to see that. And very similar to Saltburn, there was a lot of different things that I could not, my schedule just wouldn't light up where I could actually go watch this movie opening night or even opening weekend. And I saw it a couple of weeks afterwards, and this movie made my jaw drop multiple times. I thought this did an amazing job storytelling wise, where a lot of the American Godzilla movies focuses a lot more on just the monster battles, and it doesn't do a good enough job of making Godzilla a threat, where -1 definitely did that, where you actually feel like Godzilla is a threat and he can actually destroy the world. Where, like I said, the American ones don't really feel like that. They make Godzilla more of the hero of, hey, let's have Godzilla help us kill these other monsters that are a threat. And I just really enjoy that they made Godzilla a threat in -1. And just the storytelling of this man that was a kamikaze pilot, and having to live that he was kind of a coward and couldn't be what he was meant to be within World War II, and him trying to bounce back and finding this woman and this kid and trying to kind of be a family in a way, where people are kind of rejecting him because he couldn't accomplish his goal during war. And then him having a whole story arc where at the end he finally decides that he wants to be the one to save everybody and kill Godzilla. It just had a beautiful story arc, a beautiful story, and I thought it did an amazing job in pretty much all aspects of the movie. There was some obvious CGI with Godzilla, but the movie was so good that you don't even care about that. So Godzilla -1 comes in at my number 2. And finally, at my number 1, my favorite movie of 2023, as I'm sure you guys can guess by a process of elimination, it's going to be Oppenheimer. I was extremely excited for Oppenheimer. Of course, the whole Barbenheimer phenomenon just made this movie even more exciting than it already was. Like I said multiple times, you can copy and paste with a lot of these movies. I absolutely love biopics, and what Christopher Nolan was able to accomplish with this movie was just amazing. The visuals, the storytelling, just everything about this film was so riveting, so intense, it just felt amazing. Like I'm having a hard time even letting the words out of how much I love this movie. It is the only movie out of the whole year that I actually saw twice. So, I typically don't go see movies twice in theaters unless I really, really love it. And it's the only one that I saw twice. And Christopher Nolan just did an amazing job directing this movie. I thought every single actor did an amazing job. Cillian Murphy could be actor. Actor of the Year. You have Robert Downey Jr. that can definitely be co-lead. He can definitely win the Oscar for that. You have Matt Damon. You have Emily Blunt. There's just such a high caliber of actors in this movie that did just an amazing job and fully committed to their roles. And just having Christopher Nolan to back them up with the directing, with the visuals, with the storytelling, his style, just everything about this movie felt perfect. It's the first movie that I ever reviewed on this channel. Well, that review is very terrible. I hate the quality of that movie. I definitely want to do another review on Oppenheimer that's a little bit higher quality. It started off this channel, so it means a lot to me. I really just love the story itself. So Oppenheimer comes in at my number 1. But again, let me know what your guys' favorite movies of the year was. I would love to hear what you guys think about 2023 as a whole. Also, let me know what your most anticipated movies are of 2024. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And again, if you guys like talking about anything movies, TV shows, or video games related, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. And I'd love to hear all your thoughts in the comments. And I'll see you guys on the next review. Thank you.